7:09.
7:09.
And I will request that a chair pro tem be selected for this meeting, as I am homebound.
How are you feeling?
A lot better than I was even this morning.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. That's
It may seem like a trivial thing, but I actually tasted toothpaste.
Oh, yes.
That's great.
Progress.
that's good.
I mean, my daughter this morning informed us that she was sneaking out for ages to eat toothpaste at night and didn't let us know. So, that's a good thing. Apparently some really love the flavor of toothpaste.
Oh, goodness. Well, the chair has requested that a pro tem chair be appointed. Does anyone have a nomination?
I ran the meetings with
No.
PAC for years, but no.
I nominate Sue.
I second it.
Me.
Yeah, I don't think it's gonna be a huge meeting, but
Shouldn't be.
I'll give you the evening off, Jim.
Yeah, because hopefully the COVID fog won't hit.
Yeah.
Feel better.
Yeah, definitely feel better.
Take care of yourself.
Okay, Madam Chair.
Okay, we have called to order. So, you have the roll? You have the names?
I have attendees.
Okay, good.
Okay.
Did everybody get a chance to read the minutes?
I wrote them, so yeah.
Any corrections or anything on the minutes? Can I have a
I move
motion
that we
to
accept
accept a second?
I wasn't there, so should I vote or abstain?
You should abstain.
Yeah,
I'll abstain because I was not there.
Vicky.
Okay.
We're here.
yeah, yeah. The four of us were here.
So 4 votes to approve and
Yep.
1 abstain. Is Jim voting?
Yes, I will approve them as presented.
Okay.
Great.
Good.
Okay. I don't think we have any public comments since we don't have any public.
I don't see any public.
That was quick.
There's nothing listed under old business. Does anybody have any old business?
So we have, let's see, there were 2 items that popped up that we can really discuss under other business, things that came into my email late. We have, yes, we'll just do that at the end of new business.
Okay.
A couple of the other items.
Yeah, I don't think there was anything left over from last meeting that we need to revisit that I noticed anyway.
Unless we reiterate the need for a bench halfway through the circle at Merrill.
Yeah, I've twice
Yeah.
asked. They've told me that it's coming.
Okay.
This fiscal year is what they have assured me, which is not fast,
Right,
but
yeah.
it does give a timeline.
Yeah. That's
So
good.
I'm hoping before the ground freezes, maybe, and I'll
Yeah.
ask them again.
Yeah, well, the 2 people that we see regularly,
My,
that go with walkers have now gotten walkers that have the little
Yeah.
seat on them
Oh.
because they don't have their bench there anymore, so they have the rolling walkers that they can sit on,
Well, he
both
is-
of them that we see regularly.
he used his 2
Yeah.
2 sticks for a while, but then
Trekking
got
poles.
down on hiking poles, whatever you want to call them.
Okay, new business, James Parcel site. So I don't even know where the James Parcel site is. So
That's a great question. So that's why I am here. So,
Isn't that the one that's an in-holding in
yeah, so I will
It's
share our
It took a fair
screen
amount
here.
of detective work to find this.
Oh,
It's abuts, Schoolhouse Brook Park,
Yeah,
oh,
and it's kind
okay.
of an in-holding, not quite.
Oh, okay.
but it turns a corner.
yeah, so,
Uh-huh.
we gotta wait for all the parcels to load in, and it's gonna be very upset about that, but let's get rid of the lot numbers. So, the Schoolhouse Brook Park contains various parcels in here. If we turn on the open space layer, we can see
Show up.
all of these as town-owned or dedicated open space.
Okay.
This parcel here is described as permanently preserved town-owned open space, but they technically haven't given it to us yet.
Oh.
It is,
Right.
so I don't know where the wires got crossed on that. But this is a 6-acre parcel that is in the estate of Mr. John James. And his widow, Loretta James, is interested in giving it to the town. While we're not necessarily trying to acquire large swaths of additional land, the fact this is surrounded on 3 sides by
Yeah,
Schoolhouse Brook
yeah,
Park
yeah.
makes a lot of sense to add to it. If we turn on the aerials here, you will see. So if you turn on the aerials, you can see that it's really nothing
I was gonna say,
distinctive.
sure, looks like everything around it.
Oh, but it is distinct.
Um,
It has a very nice open ledge. with a-
Oh, okay.
so that's kind of the distinctive part of this parcel is it's a large ledge lot. And that presents its own challenges and opportunities. I've been communicating with Loretta James for the past couple of months about what she'd like to do with the lot in order to give it away. I provided her with some of the property history, courtesy of Vicky and Jim's research on these old maps, and I've shared those with her. She wants to, at some point in October, get out there and walk this lot and see it and see what she's given up. I think that she wants to be able to do that, to feel like she's given to the town and good standing. She's also had some questions about whether or not it would be feasible to have some sort of an ornamental planting out there, some sort of flowering plant that would take on the land, but would also show that this was once the land of John James and it's in memory of him. So she told me that she would be in the area in October. Didn't give me more a specific date than that, but I said I would go to you all and we would potentially try to organize some time when a couple folks could get out there, meet her, and talk about the lot. There's so much knowledge in this group about the area, and I'm sure she would really appreciate your expertise.
I'd like to give just a little more background here. This is not the first time that the James family has been in touch with the town and attempted to conserve this property. In 1989, trying to think. This is John James Jr.'s estate. His grandfather, Nathan, granted an open space and recreation easement to the town for 10 years. This is because the town had been talking with him about possibly acquiring the property. And he decided to keep it and put an easement on it. So that expired in 10 years. And then when he conveyed the property to his son, John James Sr., he created another 10-year easement, which expired in 2009. So there has not been an easement since 2009. But now that there's an estate situation, I think they want to just clear it up. They originally approached Joshua's Trust about this. The trust really wasn't interested because it was not contiguous to trust land. There is a little bit along Browns Road, but it's not contiguous to this property. So they contacted the town, and of course, the town was interested because we've had this
Yeah,
past history.
I
with the
say
family.
I mean, it's kind of,
Our GIS people think we own it.
yeah.
So,
Well, I think it's because there was an easement in the past, even though it had expired.
right, I'm sure that's what it is. So,
Is there a trail that goes fairly close to it, or I'm just trying to envision where the
is.
trails are?
Yeah, there's the trail that goes kind of right on the boundary of
Right
it.
at the
Oh.
corner.
Right
Okay.
up into
Yeah, the area.
here.
Oh, okay.
That's about where it
So it's, one of the corners is within 50 feet of
Oh,
you know, an established town
Okay.
trail.
So,
And Jim, I mean, you and Charlotte and Jim and I have all been out there, first of all, trying to find the property, which was. a
Does it at least have
challenge without
border
any
marks or
help.
something?
We didn't know what to look for.
Oh.
And Jim and I have been working in the vault on all of these open space things, so we looked for a map because the boundaries describe boundaries by describing the abutters, which of course, as you know,
Mhm.
since this is like from the 1800s,
Yeah.
butters, it was not too helpful. So, so anyway, so we happened to look at the survey of the Barrows property. And that was like most of this Schoolhouse Brook Park south of.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So, I mean, it's that parcel, it's also the one there where the arrow is there now. I mean,
Yeah, I think we did find it about 3 corners.
Oh, nice. Okay.
anyway, the survey of the Barrows property back in 75, I think, was the best survey I have ever seen.
Ooh,
Detailed, minute,
nice.
all of the markers installed.
Hmm.
They are still there.
Ooh.
They were easy to find. So we really lucked out because
Yeah.
basically this is just in the middle of the woods and we would never
Yeah,
have
that
known
would have been
where
so
to find
tough.
it without that.
And the more interesting thing was when the quality of the map drafting, I digitalized that survey and was able to, once I found one of the steel pins, I was able to GPS to the other one shown on the map.
Hmm.
It was done, it was drawn that accurately.
We do that anytime.
Yeah, it's great.
Alas,
I've done it.
yeah.
But anyway, for
Yeah.
those of us without GPS, Jim did flag the corners.
That's
And
great.
as much as, so, and we hope the flagging's still there. This was last spring. So, so we should be, especially because the trail comes so close
Oh, that's
to that
good.
northeast corner. We should find it very easily. And there are a couple ways to get there and we can discuss at some point
Fantastic.
the best way to get there with anyone in the Jamestown.
So my question here is, who's interested and are there times that would work for people? I'm gonna go to, Loretta. I know there are a lot of times that work for a lot of people. So perhaps are there times that don't work is better to know. But I'm gonna go to Loretta James and say, you know, we have, at some point, would you like these times? What works for you? And so if we were to aim for the second week of October, sometime in between the 9th and the 13th,
Mondays are good for me.
we could do Monday. Is an afternoon or a morning better?
That,
Within school hours.
it won't matter because it's Columbus Day.
That-
so-
Oh, right.
So.
Yeah,
Oh, so that's gonna be hard.
right. We could aim for the 16th, which would not be a day off and a holiday.
16th is fine too.
Within school hours.
Within school hours. Noon, 11?
Yeah, I can do those.
I'll put forward some times in that neighborhood to Loretta James and we'll try to get out there.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay,
You
Can
got
we
it.
offer?
Yeah, and my estimate, I've got about another week and I can move out of quarantine and then probably a week of getting back so I can do something, having not left the house in almost 2.5 weeks. Mhm.
Yeah, it takes people a while to
Mhm.
get back on their
So
feet
sorry.
from that.
So we could do Mondays are good. We could also offer her. So I'll offer her the 16th as well as the 23rd, just to have 2 Monday times if one works better. And then generally I offer another day. If there are no other good days, Miranda, we could just also offer a Wednesday.
A weekend or?
A weekend day could also, work. I don't have to be there, I'm trying to buy a house, but it's not gonna be done that quickly. But Town Press did not have me drive in, but I think I might for this if it was on a weekend day.
Friday noon. I can do.
Let's do Friday.
Try Friday.
Sure, Monday and Friday, the 9th, there's 13th, the 16th, the 20th. Great,
Tuesdays through Thursdays are really hard.
makes sense. Okay, so I will offer Monday and Friday, noon, weeks. Okay, great. I will offer those to Ms. James tomorrow.
Well,
Thank you.
ninth though.
Not the 9th. No, we'll do the 23rd.
I will take a moment to point out that this parcel would add almost 600 feet to the contiguous forest block in Schoolhouse Brook, the diagonal measure.
It is really nice to get rid of those incursions into forest.
Yeah, oh,
Um,
definitely.
I harp on about edge habitat and core forest all the time, and most people just kind of blink at me slowly, but I know
Yeah.
this group
yeah.
understands. and,
Oh, yeah.
This is a no-brainer.
Yeah.
As far as I'm concerned.
So, okay, fantastic. That,
So that,
that's everything that staff has to talk about for that one.
okay. Excuse me, subdivision regulation updates.
We're updating the subdivision regulations.
Good.
Yay.
I'll do it
Just,
sometime.
just one more little task
Just
on top of.
because we don't have enough things going on in the
Right.
planning department. So the long story short of these is that we're trying to do two things here. We're trying to get everything for all of our regulations for everything planning does into the same thing that does all of our town ordinances, because it's much more searchable and cross-referenceable, which makes it much easier to navigate. And that's good, transparency of law and all those things. We're also kind of coming into accord with state regulations because those change over the years and we want to make sure they're consistent. There are a few items in the regulations that have changed a little bit. I included the red line, and you may have seen some larger sections that were struck out. Mostly those were related to powers that the subdivision regulations were claiming that our consultants say we don't really have to claim under law. Like, we can provide recommendations, but we can't ask people prepare certain types of plans that would be about off-site improvements, because that's not pertinent to a subdivision. That belongs in zoning and items like that. So
Okay.
no real powers are being lost that we would have legally held up in court anyway. We wanted to know, so the planning and zoning referred this out to PNRC because it does pertain to open space and how we use land, and you are open space and how we use land. And we wanted to know if you had any comments, concerns, or questions.
I have a question.
Sure.
It appears that there was no section 5 and 6.
Yep.
No changes.
So if we open up the
Yeah,
subdivision
let's open it up.
regs here,
Okay.
so the objectives and design process, yes, should have been section 5 and was noted as section 5 in the chapter, but was instead labeled as section 7, and was that way for years. So that's changing. So the numbering on all of these things are going to be changed as well to come into accord with the online code. So they'll be their own chapters, but yes. Yes.
I was just wondering whether we had concealed an omission.
No, as far as we can tell, there weren't 5 and 6. There's section 7, and then there's you scroll down and you get to section 8, and then you scroll down more and you get back to section 7. Because
Whoops.
there's two section 7s. So that was, yeah, we fixed that. We fixed that.
We
I,
admire the creativity.
Thank you.
Yes.
I actually did read the entire thing,
Good for you.
I read most of it.
Wow.
and, I, not to waste this meeting's time,
Mhm.
but I have a few things that might need to be, and I could
Mhm.
get together with you sometime during the week.
Absolutely, we love to hear your comments.
But most of them are just, at least we ought to change the reference to the current name of our committee.
Yes, I believe.
In several
we
places.
Redlined that, but yes.
No,
No,
We had not.
no, and.
That's just a little thing you.
And
can
my
take care of easily.
suggestion is that instead of specific committees of any. Refer to committees as appropriate, and that way you don't have to worry about future changes. And I did note some places and I can pass those places. on to
Absolutely,
you.
yeah, just send them via email or come into my office and meet me, we'll take them down, and that will allow us to get those into an edited version by the time of the public hearing. We have, I think that's the 16th of October is the last day for comments on that, so.
yeah, the one question I did have in 14.4,
Mhm.
you strike out the authority to increase bonding requirements.
Yep.
That's not necessarily a good idea unless it's forbidden by law to do so.
Yeah, it's a legal thing. So the authority, according to, this was a conversation with our consultants. So we have a planning consultant, Tyke Youth Planning and Policy there around the state and for a bunch of people. You're allowed to review the bond amount. You're allowed to ensure the bond amount is enough to cover the improvements, but you can't arbitrarily increase the bond amount greater than the amount required to do the improvements. You have the authority by statute to bond such that if they walk away, we can do the work. But we don't have the authority to just say, okay, and 10% on top of that, right? We can call for contingency, but we can't just ask for more. And the vagueness of the language made it seem like they could provide a perfectly satisfactory bond, and then the committee could say, well, we don't actually want this to happen, so we're going to require a 300% increase in the bond and approve you.
But I guess the point I have, if you review the thing
Mhm.
and the costs have gone up, you don't appear to have authority to require an additional bond.
So that is an excellent observation. For these, so for subdivisions, you have 5 years to complete everything. So although we have, in the past 2 years, lived in a very interesting time of inflation, expecting that your prices are going to increase more than an average 20% contingency, which is often, capped in with these over the course of before this expires, at which point you would need to redo your cost calcs, is, to my understanding at least, beyond the scope of it. But yes, I mean, if the project cost have exploded, right, you could say, well, now we can't cover it, and now we're in trouble, now we're holding the bag. But this, for subdivision at least, subdivision can call for a bond, but it's only for things subdivision can bond. It's like common improvements. So even if you are doing certain things which are covered by subdivision and subdivision asks for a bond, planning and zoning can also ask for a bond. So I think it's thought that, if you fail at certain stages of the project, if people walk away midway, there's different levels where you can catch it, where you can catch the need to have more money. But I will write that comment down because that's a good question. How do we account for project cost increases in bonding?
And a lot of my other questions are basically weeds level. Because
Absolutely.
I used to do this kind of review for a living.
Yep, our planning and zoning commissioners, when we redid the zoning regulations, they all took the regulations and they all took like 40 pages and just scoured for wrong commas and misplaced modifiers. So, oh, I'm sure we did. there were even more
I'll
before.
ask someone.
So, okay,
Okay, I have an old question.
sure.
What is happening with the situation where the developer claims that they're going to have 3 lots, whatever, and put the frontage for those lots on a road, a cul-de-sac that they're proposing to build. And it never becomes a road, it simply remains a driveway, and they have managed to do that without any required frontage on an existing street. This is not a new problem. We have been talking about this since the 90s. We have yet to be satisfied with any answer that we have received.
Walk me through the situation, because I don't think I quite
I
followed,
think you
so.
haven't been around.
I haven't been around,
Right,
if this is a
so-
problem we've been having since the nineties, that's almost as old as I am. So, that's, so you have a developer who splits the lots on paper.
Yes,
And
and proposes building
a
a
road.
road. And the frontage is on this road.
That they propose building,
Right,
and then they just don't finish building the road.
it becomes a driveway, and therefore there is no frontage on an existing road.
And they don't finish all the houses.
Oh, yeah, they do, and there are 3 houses. Mhm.
How's this sharing a driveway? So they have to plan together to manage the driveway and,
This is getting around the requirements for frontage on an existing.
right,
road.
okay.
Don't,
They pretend that
finish the
they're
road.
going to create a road. And instead they don't, they just have a driveway.
Well, I would think you have bonding for that.
All I know is
So-
it's happened. I can cite a couple of examples, actually.
so
And
I can
Jennifer,
talk about
I think should talk to Jennifer.
the correct procedure on what we should do with that. And then I can also talk about the staggering costs of putting in a road and why, when we've
Mhm.
talked to contractors about, why don't we have more small lot, single family subdivisions going in to provide real housing stock for moderate income or starter homes for young folks? The answer is roads are expensive and we're just gonna not build them. Which is tough to hear, but good to know. I'll follow up with Jennifer about those.
It will not be new. to her.
No.
We've been ranting about it.
That's
for years.
one of the, actually, I mean, that I can see where that happens. But I have funny stories of even worse stories of roads than that, so we can swap those later.
So that is something that needs to be addressed. Definitely.
if roads are supposed to go in now, that's something I would hope we would catch, particularly because we don't accept things like surety bonds anymore. So one part of this regulation is eliminating surety bonds. So for those who are not familiar, surety bonds are, you say, the insurance company says that they will cover you for X amount of money should you not do the thing. The problem is, if they're not gigantic, it's not worth it because they'll just refuse to pay you. And then by the time the court case is done, you'll have paid more in legal fees than the surety bond was worth.
Okay.
So we don't accept surety bonds for anything less than, it's either high hundreds or low millions. So we're eliminating those because that's a well-known phenomenon.
Mhm.
But I will follow up on that.
And I did, in reviewing this, I did come across some language that actually applies to, and I can't remember the name of the place that had the playground that no longer is a playground.
Yeah.
Oh.
That up.
Section 13.5 D. The last part of D speaks to the dissolution of homeowner associations. And specifically says upon dissolution of the association, the open space dedication shall revert to the town,
Mm.
Yes, but keep going.
which may take action to retain or dispose of said open space.
Right, keep going.
Where the town ownership is not retained, the land shall be subject to a conservation easement.
Correct. And who owns the property? that is not addressed in the regs.
Well, I just
Wow.
put the letter in the mail to them today that says, we don't want it, thank you for your time, so.
Right, no, but I'm just saying, in the regs, it says if the town doesn't want it, it could have a conservation easement on it, but it does not specify
Who
would
gets it
own
if the town
land.
refuses
Well, I
to
would-
take it?
Yeah.
So I mean, that just needs to be clarified
Mhm.
in the regs.
Yeah.
I mean, just, it's a black hole.
That's a good question. What section is that?
13.5, D.
13.5D. I will bring that up with Jennifer tomorrow.
Thinking on Vicky's scenario, if the lot is approved based on a road being built to service it, and the road isn't there, then the lot can't be approved because there's no road.
I would think you couldn't get a certificate of occupancy.
Right,
Probably you shouldn't be able to get one. That doesn't mean they weren't issued. But yeah, you have to meet subdivision in order to allow zoning. I mean, really, you shouldn't be able to get a zoning permit to even start building, because building department won't give you a building permit to build your house until you have a zoning permit, and zoning shouldn't give you one until you are satisfied subdivision. So it shouldn't happen anymore, but then we come to the question of, well, that house has been there for 30 years. Are we actually going to
Yeah.
try to enforce on this? And generally there isn't the will, because it's not pleasant for anyone involved.
and expensive.
It's very expensive.
Yes.
Town has money. I don't live here. I don't pay taxes. A joke. This is a joke for the recording.
Okay, I have a couple of things in
Sure.
that section 13 about the open space dedications.
Yes.
One is that there's a requirement for access from an existing street,
Mhm.
and there are specifications that have to be 20 feet wide, blah, blah, blah. There are times when it is in such a position that it doesn't matter because there's access from another park or whatever. So it's not, to me, that's a little rigid. I think there needs to be something in there about, unless it's determined that there's going to be access from other public,
Mhm.
for the public from a public entity, whether it be a park,
Yeah, absolutely.
whatever. So I thought that could be tweaked a little bit.
Oh,
The other aspect here is about site improvements to the open space dedication. And there's some typos in there, but there is a question if, there's supposed to be improvements. There's nothing specifically that says who is going to create those improvements. I know that developers in the past have built trails, for example, the whole Beacon Hill Trail complex. But I'm thinking about where we're heading with the golf course project, where we need to have a boardwalk across a wetland.
Mhm.
And it needs to be clear, who is going to build this, who is going to maintain it. And that, the maintenance part is not in the regs. It seems possibly the developer is supposed to build it, but it says nothing about who maintains
Who
it.
maintains it?
there's also a little bit of a disconnect. The trails are appropriately located at least 50 feet from the building envelope area. But the right of way is only required to be 20 feet.
Mhm.
We have found that when you have a 20-foot right of way between two lots, it's often not a very desirable access point.
It's too
It's just too
Yeah.
much conflict with the abutters.
Well, I mean, you're just not comfortable. I mean, a person visiting the property is not comfortable that close to houses. And of course, people in the houses are not happy about the public trekking through.
And it may
Yeah.
be that it's okay on an individual subdivision because of how the legal access and the building envelope
Mhm.
are distributed on the particular plat.
Right.
But there's a disconnect in terms of
Right.
intrusion and
Right.
functionality of the access.
I just think there needs to be more flexibility about the width of an access from a street. Um,
These are very good.
I am not
Nice.
capturing these for the
I am trying to.
minutes.
no, it's-
I'm trying to capture these so that way we can have the comments
100%.
back and try to, because I have a meeting with my consultant next Tuesday, so I can bring all of these there and we can get those into the updated language.
Also, 1312, a preliminary review of the proposed open space is encouraged.
Mhm.
But earlier in the regs with the site analysis and so on, that's required. So to me, these are not. One is saying it's encouraged and another place it's saying it's mandatory. So I don't know how that gets resolved.
Oftentimes, that may be due to the fact that we have adopted open space regs that the state's statutory granting power to subdivision does not guarantee. So if it says it must be done, it's because chapter 826 says it must be, right? But I will check to make sure that this
Yeah,
is
to
an
me, they're not
encouraged versus statutorily
versus mandatory.
required.
Actually, I read it to another one.
Hmm.
And 5.2a, there's a reference to immediately adjacent.
The design process section?
Yeah,
Yep.
5.2a1, I think line 5 or so.
Well, prospective applicants, 5.2a, 5.2a, this is another new one. Whenever subdivision goes new streets or lots, and a lot mandatory. Looking through here.
Are there numbered points below that? Yeah. Look at number 5 and 6.
Yep,
On-site and immediately adjacent.
yep.
I've run into a situation where I've had regulated parties say it's across the street separates it, so I don't have to deal with anything across the street. Even though most people would say that's immediately adjacent. And that occurs in a couple of places in that section. In other places in the reg, you do talk about across the street.
So the statutory power behind immediately adjacent is that you're only allowed to talk about existing public improvements when you divvy up land that are touching the land or on the land. Any other requirement of broader community building requirement has to happen at the zoning phase. Because this is all about how we divvy up the land, which does matter with these kinds of things, because how you cut land turns how you set roads and trails and all those things. But yeah, that's a good question. Does immediately adjacent include across the street?
It's information that I would want as a planner.
My gut feeling is no, because the 50-foot right of way of the road intercedes.
And is the immediately adjacent.
That's the immediate
Yeah.
adjacent. So if you have sidewalks on this side or trails on this side of a road, that counts. That's my thought, but I will ask, because that is a good question.
Because if there's a sidewalk on the other side of the road, but it can't count.
Yeah, that's how that goes.
It just seems like it's limiting in terms of the ability to get useful information for making decisions.
Yeah, it's about where you draw the line. You know, you can, subdivision says you can go so far. I will check and see if this is the statutory thing, because I anticipate it's about the statutory immediacy. But I will ask about street intercession, because that's a relevant thing to know about rights of way. These are some very good questions. Thank you.
Oh, and the list of small trees that's approved should probably drop Bradford pear. Which some states consider invasive.
No, you probably don't want invasives on the list.
Let's just add some Oriental bittersweet and
Yeah.
How about
We could
autumn
throw in
palm?
a-
That's very attractive.
yeah.
Man.
Well, look at the landscaping that was approved up at CVS with all those euonymus hedges.
Oh, yeah.
On page 22, I think if they are items that are being no longer being required, and one of them is a traffic impact report.
Yes.
Yeah, is
The-
that because the state doesn't allow the town to require it?
So the reason we're not requiring the traffic impact report in optional documentation is it's really a question of infinitely ballooning scope. So the way this is written is a traffic impact report evaluating the potential impact of a proposed subdivision on intersecting streets and intersections. Said report shall identify any existing road or intersection deficiencies in the vicinity of the proposed subdivision and take into account other land use projects previously approved. Now, the last part of that isn't an issue, taking apart other previously approved, that's standard practice. But the question of vicinity, the general vicinity, how do you describe the general
How
vicinity?
big is a vicinity?
If you think about Four Corners, is Timber Drive in the vicinity? Is Cedar Swamp Road in the vicinity? Is Yukon in the vicinity? It is somewhat impossible,
Big.
depending upon how you describe the vicinity, to really request that someone who's just coming in to say, I would like to split this into 5 lots and tell me how that's going to impact the traffic at Yukon and every street off of it. So the question of what does a traffic impact report look like is any traffic impact report is done is related to, you are putting in this street with this many houses. How does this, what's this going to do? And it has to be specific to that. So you can't expand outside of it. So that is why that was taken out.
Could you say within 500 feet?
I think it's the immediacy thing. It's, you would have to say, you might be able to do along abutting streets, but oftentimes you abut only one street, which is the same as saying, yield plan, state highway plan, frontage waiver, yada, yada, yada. I'd have to go through this, but, yeah, our consultant recommended we just not require that for subdivision, considering that when you go to zoning, you already have to go through public works approval for any driveways, and you are going for just houses, for residential subdivisions. And if you have any urban or you're on a state road, you still have to prove your impact of not being a major traffic generator to the state. And so there's all these checks in other places.
Other ways.
That mean that this just feels like one of those things where a hostile commission could go, I don't like you, so prove that you're not ruining all the traffic. And it's like, that's impossible to prove, and you say that you don't get to split your land. So it seems silly, and it does seem silly when I put it in these hyperbolic terms, but trying to create powers that are enforceable and also not abusable by either side is kind of
It's a
one of the
very,
things we're.
very fine line.
It is,
Mm.
it is, and we don't have enough to do in the planning department. So we like to walk that line every day.
But it was interesting reading.
I'm glad you enjoyed it.
On the open space dedications that included. Is the town after the whole Lodi Drive? thing
I-
Going to encourage that in the regs? I mean, you could just not say anything, you know, not forbid it, not permit it, and if somebody really
Just
wants
not
to do it,
mention it.
then they can come and make their case.
Yeah.
For doing it.
I think that's a fair point, considering that,
So we've just lived through this.
right, they stopped doing it because it was a bad idea and caused liability and.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'll bring that up.
Although, by the same token, with the change in liability and everything, if it were appropriate, a town sponsored playground there might be something
Right.
that would be,
Right, but see, that's what I'm saying, just leave it unaddressed,
Mhm.
and then if that idea comes up,
as long as it doesn't, as long as the language doesn't exclude it by not mentioning
that's
it.
what I'm
Yeah.
saying.
Right, no, it's not, it's, such examples include or are promoted to be, but you don't, it's not an exhaustive list, so by just not having it in the list. You may not draw developers' ideas of, oh yeah, playground, we'll do a
Yeah,
playground,
yeah.
and cause trouble 2 years
Yeah,
later.
we just-
Pickleball court.
Yeah, there you
God,
go.
no.
I just don't want to encourage anyone to think about it.
Right.
I
They
think
haven't,
we should avoid it. If we can.
it's a fair point.
I have some typos in some, but I can pass this on.
Give me the typos and I'll make sure they get in there.
Yeah.
And
And I have a couple of places where it just, again, it's weeds.
no, that's good, we want those, that's,
Hmm.
Right,
people catching those is great. And we just incorporate them and they go from there.
There's one place where you require plans in blue line prints, which is kind of obsolete technology.
Right.
Slightly obsolete. They're really cool though. They're relative
are.
to that.
They get high too.
Yeah, we'll take all of those and make sure that we get those fixed.
Weed them out.
Yeah, we'll weed them out. Okay.
Okay, so where are we? We are,
Preserve.
Coney Rock is there something that we need to,
Axon, no, it's just
Yeah.
something I wanted to tell you about.
Okay.
So this is just Joshua's Trust. So Coney Rock is ours, but it's adjacent to Joshua's
Right.
Trust, and they actually have the rock. The
right,
rock is almost entirely on their land. So we have Coney Hill Preserve, and it's a steep hill. But that hill is difficult to hike into from most directions.
Mhm.
So if we just go back to the GIS and we toggle over to that side of the town. Where are we? Did I go too far up? I did. Yeah, so. Coney Rock is lost. Oh, it's over here.
Yeah.
Yep, so. It's incredibly steep here and incredibly steep here.
It's incredibly steep all the way around.
It's incredibly steep
Yeah.
all the way around, but one of the shallower points, not shallow, but shallower, is in this area here, which is a boulder field with a bunch of glacial erratics. And Joshua's Trust is planning to put in a trail going through here below the cliff, so you can kind of look
oh,
up
cool,
at it.
okay.
Good idea.
And then it's going to wind through our property and loop back around here, so you can come out to the top of it. Not directly below, we don't want to encourage people to walk along the cliff face, because that is a potential harm to people. And we can't stop them from doing that, but we don't want to make it easy for them. So they are going in here. I walked it with some folk from Joshua's Trust on Thursday. I think it's very reasonable to do so. It seems very feasible. They've mobilized some UConn students to help with blazing and clearing. And so that's going in progress. If you have any objections, let me know, but.
Is it going by the erratic pile?
Yeah, so you are.
Oh, cool. I like
it
that.
goes kind of through here. There's a couple you can see. There's a large rock
It's a nice
here.
trail.
So it's a nice trail. It goes through here. It's kind of a cool place to be. They found out about it because there were a whole bunch of people dirt biking in the area. And they were getting reports that there were people with dirt bikes because it was a cool place to ride dirt bikes. So they chopped up all the dirt bike jumps a couple of years back. Then COVID hit. Then people finally forgot about it. And now they're putting the trail through. So we're going to see how this goes.
Is the town gonna work on parking for the trailhead?
It's on the list, but it's low priority. The parking over here is, we have parking,
Left-hand side.
Yeah,
yeah, here
There's a little bit on the
about, there's, I think, like 3 or 4 parking spaces total. And then it's straight up the hill.
yeah.
But having some parking on Mulberry would be,
Parking in Mulberry?
Yeah, we
Can't
do have
people
parking.
just Park on the road?
They can do that. There's
Well,
also,
there's a pull where the erratics are, there's a
couple
place
of
to
pull
pull.
outs.
Yeah,
so.
there's a small, I mean, is the trust,
Not big.
I mean, it's trust land, are they going to create a parking?
I don't know. I'm not sure.
or at least
Acquire.
work with it. I think the trust should work with the town to at least get a wider shoulder there for people to safely pull off. Because people aren't gonna wanna park on Chafeeville and walk around.
Oh, no.
That's
more
Well,
dangerous
if
than
the
anything.
trail-
Yeah.
I will talk to the town engineer and Joshua's Trust about whether or not we can get a slightly larger shoulder there, or if there's already a good one for parking.
Yeah, there's a couple of sort of pull-offy
Yeah.
areas along there.
Mhm.
They'll be able to do something.
So that's all I had to tell you about with that one.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I think it's just a good thing. In terms of other things happening in the parks and on town land that we're doing with Joshua's Trust, there is one other thing which we are likely to be doing, which is a timber salvage. Joshua's Trust is neither the town nor Joshua's Trust are in the business of timber harvesting our land.
Yep.
But given the state of the ash population, and the potential danger it presents to have as much standing dead wood as there could be, there's been some talk of whether or not we can get forester and logger in to do assessments on some of our larger parcels, particularly where they join Joshua's Trust, then do a joint timber salvage to potential, if the resource is going to die, you might as well do the responsible land stewardship and get it down now. So that is in early stages. When it becomes more concrete, I'll come back with more updates.
It might be a good idea to do some community education about this, so we don't get people complaining about cutting trees.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yep.
Yeah,
The,
It's just, we understand it, but the people who use these lands might not.
mhm.
And so a little education might forestall irateness.
And neighbors.
the Dunham Town Forest Management Plan does include provisions for timber harvests.
Yeah, that's right, I remember that.
Yeah. So
That's just the one
Yeah,
parcel.
Yeah.
and I think only one area of that parcel, if I remember correctly.
But a good part of it,
we talked to Tom Worthley. I think he's still with the.
as of August, he was.
Yeah, with the
Yeah.
extension service.
Yeah.
He'd probably be a good person to speak to.
Always good to mobilize folks on those kinds of things. We,
There's something in the next town newsletter might be
Yeah.
helpful.
I'll
Yeah.
write an article for that, for the newsletter. That'll be straightforward, just to explain, trees that would otherwise die. If you hear a lot of shopping, that's what it is. Considering how many calls we get about trees being down,
Yeah.
I get at least 1 a week of something's down on a trail. So it's something we got to do. And I've spoken with our tree warden, Brian Lavoie, who's just absolutely beside himself on how many trees he has to take down and how few people he has to deal with the large number of trees.
Yeah,
So,
So are you thinking of contracting with a logger to do this?
probably, but we're going to let a forester drive. So, we'll probably be contracting. It really depends on the estimates on how much. I don't know precisely what the town's procedure is on. Technically, this doesn't cost us anything, because normally we have to have competitive processes unless it's a certain price, but if technically we're making money, I don't know. Like, we never let the price drive the bus, but what is the procedure? I don't think we've ever done one of these joint with Joshua's Trust, as far as I remember and Jen remembers, so we may have to speak to our attorney about exactly how that's done. But yeah, we're gonna contract, because we're not gonna have Public Works do it. They don't have the
No,
time to do everything we're asking them to do already.
Right.
And they don't have the specialized equipment.
Also, no.
That's
Yeah.
true.
Yeah.
Do you have specific places in mind?
I do, hold on, I have let me just check, because I got a call at the end of the day. Oh, Tom Wardley was already recommended for writing up the plan for the Forester Logger combination.
He's an
Um,
excellent person.
He's done workshops for the
He'd
town.
be extremely helpful.
I don't have them for you today, but I'll put them in an email to you when we figure out where we're thinking. Anywhere we have adjoining parcels is a place we're thinking, so for
Okay.
like Coney Rock would be one.
Yes.
Because mobilization costs are a big factor, so if you can get people out to a site once, even if it's a bigger site, it tends to be more cost effective.
Right.
Now, Coney Rock was cut, the shelter wood cut before the property was donated to the trust. That was in the early 2000s. So I don't really know what the state is, and that was just on the top.
Right.
So I really don't know what the state of the forest is there at this point. I mean, if it's time to do another timber cut, or if they're thinking of doing it on another part of the property.
Well, you got oak and ash mortality since that cut.
That's
that
true.
changed.
That's
Yeah.
true.
That changed the whole perspective on what you've got to manage.
Yeah, yeah, because you still have moth damage.
Yeah.
On most of the properties where there's a lot of oak.
So it's whatever you were managing for 15 years ago, it's been blown out of the water.
Yeah. Okay, so that's that. We will
Okay.
continue coordinating on that. I had just two other things to talk to you about at the end of new business that weren't on the agenda because they came in today. So the first is the Northwest Vision and Strategy Plan, which Jennifer sent out. So because we don't have enough things to do with planning, and I think she sent it to you. Because we don't have enough planning. One of the plans that we're doing is related to the Northwest Manfield area. So for those who are not familiar with this initiative, or if you already are, we have so much development. The elementary school is closed. We have a lot of trails and open space we want to protect in this area. As a result, we're trying to develop a master plan for how it's going to develop. We are looking for one representative from Parks and Natural Resources and one representative from Conservation Commission, who I'm going to talk to tomorrow, to join a small working group on putting our heads together and figuring out, okay, let's get ideas, let's get the pulse of the committees and what they've heard from the community and what we think this place could be. So it's an ideas and fact finding. And so tonight we were hoping that you might be able to appoint someone to participate in the focus group. Somebody who's free. I don't know if we have a time for the focus group yet. I do know that there's going to be a whole community meeting of what we come up with on November 9th. So that will be available to everyone, and much like the last big community meeting, I'm sure it will be very well attended. And may need to not be in this building because we were so over how many people we were expecting. So we may need a larger auditorium. So maybe
I got the new it's slated for the new elementary school.
Oh, good.
Oh, good.
Oh, good. That's good. We'll fit in there.
Oh, yeah.
So yes, so this was something.
I would be willing, subject to whatever my
Right.
schedule is for the details.
if no one objects
No, I'm.
to
I
Ken
nominate
volunteering, we have a nomination.
Yes. Oh.
No one is objecting.
No.
All right, well, Ken, I will be in touch probably Thursday, and I'll send you the email with everyone else.
Okay, I got that email from Jenna.
Yes, when we have follow-ups for times and any other materials we're gonna distribute.
One of the things that I will focus on is the long-standing opinion of this committee is that concentration of people needs public space there,
Mhm.
Yeah,
and there isn't any.
yeah.
Well, there is, but it's very limited.
And we're also acutely aware of the fact that with the school closing, there's no playground in that part of the community anymore, which is, or won't be if that.
Are they
school
taking that?
becomes- If the school becomes not a school,
Hmm.
if it becomes something else and the playground is discontinued, then we wouldn't have one in the entire northwest quadrant of town, which
Hmm.
is not good for local community health, right?
Well,
So.
and there's so many people there.
Yeah, we're just adding so many people. Ostensibly, some of that housing is supposed to house families.
Right.
So families have kids, kids need somewhere to play, there's the playground.
So is the playground equipment still there?
Still there, yes.
Okay,
So it's there for now, it's just
right.
in limbo a little bit.
Yeah.
And we have so many things going on, we're not sure where it's gonna go. So that the recommendations of this group, that we need open space, we need dedicated places for people to go and have public amenities is, I think, a critical voice to have.
Yeah, I would really, I haven't heard anything about what they're thinking of doing with the school buildings. But I always thought in the back of my mind that Mansfield needed a nature
I
center.
knew you were
Yeah.
gonna say that.
And,
How did you know she was gonna say that?
and I may go and talk to Jay at some point to see if he has any knowledge about what's going on with those buildings. I mean, Vinton has one,
It would be really good.
well, Vinton has Turtle Island, and Turtle Island would make the cutest nature center on the face of the earth, but then it doesn't have the greatest property around. There's not a lot of property around Goodwin, but there is a little nature trail there. And it's close enough to,
UConn's,
well, yeah,
It's
the
got
Yukon
Shelter
property
Falls.
and Shelter Falls and, but I haven't heard anything about what's going on with the
I think
buildings.
one
Has
of the
anybody
things
heard
that
any?
one of the things this focus group is doing is looking at what happens to that building.
Yeah, because when,
And you're welcome to come as a
The
member of the public at that open hearing.
the only reason that it dawned on me that might be an interesting thing to do, when Weathersfield closed one of their elementary schools and chopped it up into pieces. That's where Weathersfield Nature Center started, was in the school building.
Yep.
They started out with one room and then they were given another room, and I think they actually ended up with 3 rooms.
What did they
And
do with the rest of the building?
there was a library branch in a piece of it. There was some town offices in a piece of it. They really filled up the whole building with not just one thing.
they used it all.
Yeah, they designated a few rooms for this and a few rooms for that. And if they're gonna do something like that, at Goodwin, it's like, we want this. I want the 2 at the end of the hall. They have the greenhouse outside. And the nature trail start is right there. I have it all planned out.
That's fun. That is fun. Yeah, so we haven't finished our facilities plan because we have more plans, because that's what we do. So planning department is not the not planning department. So the facilities plan is ongoing at the same time, and these things all feed back into each other. So that's,
Yeah.
it's critical to know. Things that we have actually gotten done, though, that wasn't just planning, was we have updated our parks brochure.
Ooh,
So we updated our parks brochure, Now that we have a new seal, we've got a new QR code that brings you to all of our trail guides. We have, so I'm just gonna zoom in here if I can figure out how to do that.
When do
Not
we
be
see this?
completely tech literate. So this is our first draft. Let me just download this and then I will.
You said that's a draft, so it's not public yet.
So this is not public yet. This is our first draft. I got it back from our graphic designer on Thursday, and she asked if we have any comments. So Jennifer and I have been looking at it. Some of the changes from the previous version are changes to how we denote places of interest. They used to be green stars, which was less than ideal against the green background of all the parks. It made it kind of hard to see. So she's replaced them with yellow stars. The numbers used to just be black and not surrounded by any of those so they were also hard to see. So that's just top a little more. Simpson Woods is now on here. Simpson Woods has been added since the last time we did it, so we've got that on here, and we've got all of our language here. I'm going to be sending this out. All. If you
Okay.
want to look at it more closely, have any questions or more things that you'd like to know, that's what we're gonna be doing. But we have this, so that's exciting.
Nice.
We'll be getting these two prints. We're probably gonna use the COG print shop because the Capital Region COG has this very effective and inexpensive print shop that we used to print a whole bunch of stuff for our brochures for invasive species that we printed earlier this year and that we are waiting to distribute until Deep tells me that we are good to go. So I need to prod them again on that.
Question.
Yes.
In your graphic design,
Mhm.
did you coordinate with the wayfinding project that we had comments on a while ago?
So yes and no. So the wayfinding project, we didn't coordinate with the wayfinding project. The wayfinding project coordinated with sometime before I got here. The town said the colors are this green and this blue. And we've been on a let's rebrand everything in those mostly symbol. So the there was no coordination with the project or the shapes of anything. It's just updating the old symbols to the new symbols and going to this new color. The old one was a much like darker green, if I remember, than the kind of brighter spring green that we use now. So I hope that answers your question.
I'd hate to see us have to rewrite it again because somebody changed the idea of what signs should look like.
We're not. Hopefully, we're not doing that again because finishing the signs is a lot of work for me right now. That's yes.
The map.
Yes.
I assume that that will now be in the community center brochure.
Yes, that is the plan.
Okay.
So that we will get these all. This
That
will be the
whole-
new graphic.
That whole page would
Yep.
be the new graphic.
Yep.
It's gonna be small.
It is going to be small.
How about a 2-page spread?
I can ask them to give us that much
Yeah.
and have this on one page and this on the
Yeah.
other.
Yeah,
That would be much
exactly.
nicer.
It would be, and it
Um,
would be much easier to read.
yeah.
The writing, because it's gonna be really small if they try to get all that.
And I'll see if they'll give it to us.
Maybe the
mean-
first time,
That would be nice.
you know, like announcing new
Mhm.
map.
I think we just need to keep enough over there as well, such that, you know, anyone who wants a larger version of the map can also access it.
Well, but people go on the web, you know, they're not
Mhm.
necessarily at the community center or the library or wherever these would be.
But having bigger.
These things are everywhere. They come to people's mailboxes. I mean, so
Yeah.
everyone gets one.
Mhm.
So that's why I'm thinking this is an important avenue for getting the new map out is that brochure. And maybe
Yeah,
the first time, do a 2-page spread.
And especially if that's what goes in the brochure. If you put the QR code on that page,
Yeah,
well.
to link right to it.
yeah, yeah.
people can jump right to it, because the brochure, other part of the brochure won't get in the,
Oh,
No,
no.
Yeah,
yeah, so
yeah,
I'll
just take
wanna,
that and stick it in the
I'll wanna
map,
get
yeah.
that down over, probably can go.
Yeah,
right
that would
here.
fit there.
Yeah. Yeah.
that's just one of those things. You gotta give people access the way they get to it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That'll be
You
good,
wanna
yeah,
make it
that's a
easy.
good idea.
Not that I use QR codes.
No, but
Yeah.
some people do.
How the heck do you use it?
Yeah, I
Just your phone camera reads them.
yeah,
It's-
I
don't know how it
I
works
know-
beyond that.
I know the
Nor-
theory of it, but
That far.
I don't even know whether, I haven't tried it, so I don't even know whether my phone camera
Okay.
does.
That's a good idea, Ken, I
Yeah.
will, yeah. Okay. And then the last 1 second update is we're expecting to get our ADA audit for the parks back by the end of October. And we have preliminaries, and the preliminaries are saying our parks are not that accessible. That is not necessarily a surprise for some
I
of
was
them.
gonna say, well, that's no surprise.
Yeah,
Yeah, the importance of having it in writing is how are they not accessible and how can we
Yeah.
make them accessible? Because there are certain compliances we are going to have to meet. So this is something that Jennifer and I are going to be putting our heads together on, but essentially there will be standards for our public spaces to have a percent of them be accessible.
Mm,
I just think that is not real. I'm
Well,
sorry.
it's
Yeah.
one of those weird things where we have a huge percentage of preserves compared to things like.
oh,
other
yeah, we
parks.
absolutely do, yeah.
And the way these, I
Yeah.
think it's about the way we classify parks and what is public access and all these various things, and that we wind up disproportionately offering services that are not accessible, even though we have other accessible services. So we're gonna have to think about how can we make some of these places accessible, more accessible. Some of that may be working on our parking situation, which is a lot of it. And some of it is going to be about ensuring that our pathways, where we do have pathways that have been paved, are actually adequately maintained. And because, for example, Bicentennial Pond has universal access trail, except of course, it's only universal access sometimes when everything is going properly, right?
Yeah.
It requires maintenance. So that's the kind of things we have to consider. When we have that in hand, I will provide you all a copy so you can read and see what their assessment is.
Mhm.
So that's coming down the
But,
pipeline.
but the standards will probably apply more to parks than preserves.
Mhm.
So it becomes
Yeah.
imperative to consider what we call something.
That's right.
Right, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So waiting on,
Let's go back and look at that list again. How many reserves do we have?
it's mostly preserves.
I know.
It's mostly preserves, right?
Well, I think the
So-
only park we've added was Mount Hope.
Well, Mount
Yeah.
Hope and Merrill Meadow is a park.
Yeah, that's,
Yeah. But we haven't really added a lot to the park inventory
No,
right.
with our preservation.
we don't have the right topography to do that.
No.
No, we don't.
no,
Hills and streams.
And ADA is just gonna have to live with it. Not every town is level.
Oh, no, not at all. Unfortunately for us, ADA is not the one who lives with things when ADA calls. So we are going to figure that out on our end.
Yeah.
That's what you pay us for. So we'll make it work. Anyway, that's what I've got. Sorry for the
Okay.
extra stuff that wasn't on the agenda.
That's okay.
So
okay, what do we have next? We have
Reports from
any
members.
communications that anyone has? No, reports from members.
I have one. Just that Jim, Robbie and I did, we got GPS units on that trail near our house. The one, so the connector between Felon and Monticello,
Oh, good, okay.
GPS'd it. And so we just need to get those coordinates to Jim so he can add them to whatever
Fantastic.
Okay.
database he's doing.
Okay.
The other thing that's worth knowing is that we've checked on that trail and it's doing well. It's getting use. It was quite, we were away from the summer for the summer, so we weren't sure exactly how much it was going to be overgrown or not overgrown or whatever by the time we went to look back at it, but it's actually pretty nicely clear just from people walking on it, which is really awesome. So I think it's actually getting some good use.
What I've been doing is pulling together the trail mapping from Connecticut Trail Finder and a lot that I had myself into one consolidated map of town that's GPS coordinated with a base map of the 5-foot contour and the property lines. And it's starting to pull together. I've identified several places that we've got to get into Connecticut Trail Finder, like Simpson Wood.
There's a nice couple of really big bittersweet vines that I noticed right near the entrance that might have to disappear, but other than that, we're doing good.
Which end?
Which end, Miranda?
Felon. Yeah, pretty sure it's the vine that's planting all the seeds that's crowding out my berry patch across the road.
We give you permission.
Thank you.
I didn't hear anything.
I have some ground
Gonna
up.
die naturally.
Now's the time.
Okay, any other, we could comment on Merrill Meadow. We've been at
We
Merrill
could go
Meadow
for days.
pretty much every day since we stopped camp. Unless it was pouring rain, which of course takes up a lot of
Frequent.
us.
Gonna say that.
And Meadow has just been amazing this year. Compared to last year, when by this time everything was already dead
Yep.
and the pits. Yesterday we were in, no, not yesterday, the day before yesterday, there was a clump of Joe Pye weed, probably 3 or 4 feet around. And there were 2 American lady butterflies, a monarch, a viceroy, at least one, probably 2 fritillaries, 27 bumblebees that were sitting on the same flowers as all the butterflies,
That's fun.
all at the same time. And I'm going crazy. Well,
That's
both are
cool.
going crazy with the camera, having way too much fun. I mean, there was just this little patch, there was all this stuff. And we're trying to get a little bit better with bumblebee identification. So I'm getting up close and personal with my bumblebees. It's hilarious. I love my bumblebees. They're just so fuzzy, and they have little yellow things sticking out all over the place. You want to comb them or something.
Good numbers of our Argiopees too.
Yeah, there was 6 Argiopees, the big garden spiders, and a completely spooked out Halloween shamrock spider, which has got a
Yeah,
gigantic abdomen. It's scary looking as all get out. So we've been having fun with him because he hides and jumps out at you. It's like, stop it.
there are about 4 turtle heads in the southern portion. And earlier in the season, we
Okay.
had a trillium that only gets to New York
Yeah,
all by itself.
toad something. It's a sessile trillium.
Cecily, well,
The
Yes,
flower comes
right.
up in the middle.
Yes.
And it's not supposed to be here, but that's there. And then we also found a giant Solomon seal, like a
right
6
right
foot
along
tall
the
Solomon seal with the great
Yeah.
big flowers.
4
That
feet
was pretty
high.
cool. We hadn't seen that one there before. So there's
Yeah,
just all sorts
all
of,
this rain
that's-
has
yeah.
really done some
yeah,
good things.
yeah, it's crazy. Last year there were a few little of the trailing buckwheats, and now there's buckwheat.
Oh, it's all
We're
over
gonna
the
start
place.
making pancakes out of the field. Oh, and gray tree frogs about the size of my thumbnail everywhere. These little itty bitty
Yep.
green frogs sitting everywhere.
It's been a good summer.
Yeah, that field has been nuts this, I mean,
Especially
oh,
compared with the drought.
yeah,
last-
oh, yeah, I mean, comparing it, I say last year, by this time, everything was dead,
Going to opposite
Yeah.
extreme
yeah.
this year.
But it's going every day is just so interesting because, there's been stuff that's come and gone but last year there was tons of stuff on the milkweed. There were milkweed bugs and milkweed beetles and 3 or 4 different caterpillars.
Not much on milkweed.
Nothing
at
on
all.
the milkweed is all pristine this year. There's nothing on it. It's,
Only had 2 monarchs all summer long, which was kind of surprising.
Yeah.
No eggs, no caterpillars, no chrysalis. Not the good part.
but it is fun to be looking at a place every day and see how it changes from day to day and what's there and the sequence of flowers and stuff has been just really
Okay.
fun. Okay, anything else?
Executive session?
No.
No. Good.
Future
Okay.
meetings,
Okay.
November.
Meetings? None?
November.
Yep.
We will have future meetings. This isn't the last one.
Always 3rd Tuesday or whatever.
Yep, or Tuesday, it's time.
Yep.
Okay,
Okay, do we have a,
I move to adjourn.
I second it.
no one is protesting?
Yep.
Adjourn at 8:30.
Okay.
Thank you, Sue.
Not bad.
No problem.
Feel better.
Yeah, Jim,
Cover well soon.
See you guys.
take care of yourself and
Good evening, everyone.